Summers, please introduce yourself.
Right, I am fondly known as Saga. So my name is Krishna Alexander Samaroo. I was born in Belmont. I spent some time in San Grande. I went to Belmont Boys Secondary and then to Fatima College. After Fatima College, I went to the University of the West Indies and I did my degree in English, and I got posted to teach at Pleasantville Secondary School. I remained there till 2014. At the time it was Pleasantville Senior Comprehensive School. Yes.
Okay, but we've been colleagues for a number of years. I came here in 1981 and I left you here when I departed in 99 for Botswana.
Yes, you went on you answered the ancestral call to teach in Botswana. I remember that clearly. I came here in 79, so yes, I met you, and you were involved in the Performing Arts Society.
Yes.
One of the greatest organizations that this school produced.
Yes.
You were involved. And I know you to be involved in dance and carnival, and you became very much involved in other co-curricular activities of the school. You left in what year you said?
99.
99. I retired in 2014. But I do have a good relation with you, Mr. Clifton. I call you Cliff or Hollis.
So, Krishna call me Cliff.
Yes. I call you Cliff.
Which house you were in?
Well, I was in house 4. No, sorry, I was in house 6 first. And then I was moved to house 4.
4.
Yes.
That's when they make the changes? Because when they did from junior sec, senior sec.
Well, we had a number of changes with this house system. At first we had 8 houses.
Yes.
Named after birds.
Yes.
You were in house, yours was house 7,
yes.
Kingfishers. And there was always fierce rivalry.
Of course, especially carnival time.
Well, sports and carnival. Two significant events where the houses had to vie among themselves for the rewards. Mr. Critchlow was doing his debate, and he came and he approached the principal about doing some renovations to the house, and that is mentioned in the book. Previously, we used to have like from one class, 4 students going to one house, and the next 4 going to another house, and so on. There were 8 houses.
Yeah.
So let's say of a class of 32, the students were separated. Mr. Critchlow came up with a bright idea of, instead of doing that, separating the students from each class, let us have entire class go to houses.
Wow.
And that was a major transformation. He kept the same names, but later on, when we had the deans introduced, there was a further, what I call a renovation to the house. We had 5 deans, so 3 houses were trimmed out, so we now had 5 houses. And then further on, well, the deans were in charge of the houses, right?
Yeah.
And they became closely identified with the houses, so that we could, we used to say, well, Miss Toussaint is Scarlet Ibis, and Miss Bissoon was parakeets.
Yeah,
and well, of course, Mr. Critchlow remained hummingbirds, right? And we had blue jays, and the other house was honey creepers, right? So those are the 5 houses. So we trimmed out 3, and the deans were in charge. But then later on, when Mr. Allard came, we had more renovation. Well, not a renovation, but an adjustment. He said he didn't want his deans to be burdened by those responsibilities. So other teachers were in charge of the houses, and that is what we had from the start, with the houses. Yes.
So you said who was the principal that came in?
Mr. Allard.
Allard, the Parangdero.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I remember him.
Right.
So is this book the outcome of your fetish for literature, for writing, for creating?
Well, when from sixth form days, I was interested in writing, and I took that interest to a higher level when I went to UE. I started to write poetry and so on. And when I came here in 1979, as I say, when in 1981 Dr. Williams passed away, I wrote a poem, and I entitled it Eric's Dead. Eric's Dead is an echo of Freddie's Dead, a nice song. You remember that song, Freddie's Dead?
Well, I remember Who Killed the Sparrow.
Right. So Eric's Dead. And Mr. Glasgow saw it, and he put it in the brochure, 1981 brochure. And he had this girl, Alicia McBurney, do a dramatic performance of this poem. I couldn't believe that is the same poem I wrote when I saw Alicia. I thanked her so profusely when she came off the stage. But from that point, people started to see me as the resident poet, and then, by extension, the resident writer. But I was writing all the time. In 1985, I had Tentacles and Tendrils, and then I had Song of a Barefoot Soul, Our Better Halves, The Novarians, and this year I was working, from last year to this year, I was working on 3 books, or 2 books first. The Public Orator, and a kind of follow-up to The Novarians, a novel based on 6 form days. But then Mr. Adams suggested,
Boris,
that's the man, Boris, suggested, why don't you're writing books and so on, you have the time now because COVID has allowed you time. And I must say, if it was not for COVID, I would not have known what retirement is all about.
Okay.
And I retired since 2014. But COVID gave me the chance to have space to do some things. And so I was writing, as I say, I was preparing book 6 and book 7, right? And Mr. Adams said, why you don't do something on Pleasantville? And that had me thinking. I said, well, yes, I did write a number of things on Pleasantville. I'll see. So I started to put material together, and bit by bit, the book started to evolve. And that is how this book came about, Posted to Teach.
So what is this book about, really?
Right, okay. So I had a number of ideas for the book. The book represents all that, let's say, all that I was involved with writing since I came here in 79 to when I retired. Everything that I did with writing, I said, let me see if I could get that material and put it together. Like, I did a number of tributes. Mr. Sweet was one of the first tribute I did, and it was in the brochure. And from Mr. Sweet to the time I retired and even beyond, I was still writing tributes. Altogether, there are 28 tributes in this book. This is the part 2 of the book. Tributes on staff, teaching and civil service. 28 altogether, but I did 2 composite tributes, and so they cover really 38 persons. That is part 2. In part 3, I was the teacher in charge of the valedictory address. From 1986, Mr. Regis sent a student to me, Shelley Cole. You remember Shelley Cole?
Yes, right. Of course, I did.
Right.
BC Strategies.
Right. He sent Shelley Cole to me, and she came to me and she said, Mr. Regis said, he wants me to help her with the valedictory address. And Andre Mondesi, who was in Form 5, he was the co-valedictorian. So I worked with the two of them from 86. After that, I was nominated as the teacher to be in charge of valedictory address for a number of years. And there were 16 valedictory addresses I was teacher in charge of. And I was here for 35 years, right? Those 16 valedictory addresses, I have them as scripts in part 3 of this book. So that I have explained what is part 2 and part 3. Part 1, you have 20 chapters. And that is when I started to narrate now, from a personal perspective, the 45-year history of this school. Because the school will be celebrating its 45th anniversary come November. Now we have 2 dates in November. November the 15th, the teachers were here. November 29th, the students came out. And that is those 20 chapters represent what you will get in part 1. Okay?
So who is your target audience? Is it senior citizens, youths?
Yeah, well, the target audience, it's in the blurb of this book. For the thousands who pass through the gates of Pleasantville Secondary School, the thousands to come, this book is a gift to be treasured. That's my immediate target readership. The thousands who pass through here, whether staff, with a staff and a student, and the thousands to come. Initially, that's the first set of people I am thinking of. Then there are the educators. It is a book based on school. It's on school. It's the history, as I say, a personal history of a school, and not just a school, a senior comprehensive school, a public secondary school. And I feel that educators here, they don't have to be, from Pleasantville, should appreciate the book. And the third set of people I am thinking of, not that I was thinking of, but I could think of now, any persons who are interested in reading books. I feel that this book can appeal to them. Like people who know me to begin with, who know I'm a writer, and they see, okay, Krishna Samaroo posted to teach, right? I didn't go to Pleasantville, but I know him, and I would like to. People are saying they would like to read the book, just because they know me. But I'm saying, if you see it on the shelf, the bookshelf, you go to the bookstore and you see it on the shelf, posted to teach. As somebody who loves reading, you might want to pick it up and find delight in it.
What is unique about Pleasantville Senior Comprehensive School in relation to this book?
Right, well, that is a lovely question, a very interesting question. What is so unique about Pleasantville? When I came here in Pleasantville and I started to interact with people, I saw bright, talented students. I saw bright, talented members of staff, yourself included. Mr. Regis, well, he became Dr. Regis. Sadly, he's no longer with us. Mr. Glasgow, Miss Shan, Miss Rosta.
Shan is also deceased.
Shan is deceased. Rosta is deceased. Miss Lala, all deceased. Interestingly enough, they appear in the chapter. Memories. They appear in the third chapter, second chapter, third chapter. They appear. So what is unique about Pleasantville? Pleasantville, I realized that this was not an ordinary school. What was happening here is not just academically, but culturally what was happening. In terms of sports too, the kind of people we putting out. We have names like Anand Ram Logan, we have Keston Bledman, we have Sherma Andrews, we have Darren Shepherd, we have Liam Tegg, right? These are just some.
Professor Liam Tegg.
Professor Liam Tegg. Roger Henry passed through here. Jesse May Vento passed through here. Let me see who else I can call. Well, we have our scholars. We have a set of scholars who, national scholars, and then there are special additional national scholars. A whole set of them we got. That's in the book. The book is testimony to all these people who passed through here.
Did you include the effect Ken Professor Fillmore had on our students?
Certainly, there is a section on the steel band and the steel orchestra. When Mr. Sweet came, that is when things really started to happen to the school. Good, and the chapter dealing with Mr. Sweet is entitled "The Golden Age." And a number of people look back to those days with fond memories of what happened there. So we have the steel orchestra, and as you mentioned, Ken Professor Fillmore. Within months of the arrival of Mr. Sweet, the school saw the formation too of its steel orchestra. It was the coming together of a number of disparate pieces like a jigsaw puzzle. And here's the part. A stone's throw away from the school lived the famous Ken Professor Fillmore. Some of our students were practicing members of existing steel bands within the vicinity of the school. He is there. Sadly too, he has passed on. You know, as I'm talking about passed on, I would have liked this book to come out before certain people passed on, like Mr. Regis, right? Okay. But he passed on in 2018. But there was a girl, Mr. Adams keeps telling, he keeps bringing me up to date on all those who passed on. There was a girl, and I would have liked her to see the book because her name is in it, Holder. But unfortunately she passed away. That's what I'm saying. So I just hope people don't pass on without reading this book. That's the point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you asked about Professor Fillmore.
Yeah, so could you tell me something about marketing?
Well, the marketing, I mentioned the people the people I had in mind, right? What is happening is the book is available on Amazon. I work with a publisher, and through the publisher I order copies. I ordered 100 copies, and to this day, what the publisher told me last night actually is that they will be arriving in Miami tonight. Tonight.
Interesting.
In the meantime, people away are putting their hands on this book and putting it on Facebook and putting me in a position where I have now to say, okay, the secret is out. The book is available on Amazon. Sadly, it is not available locally as yet, unfortunately. But in time to come. So people are getting it, and the people who are getting it are my Facebook friends, past students. I didn't see any past teacher as yet, but past students, and also people who know I wrote other books like The Norwegians. There was one person who said, if it is as good as The Norwegians, I can't wait to put my hand on it. That is the kind of responses I'm getting.
So, economically, where are you better off? With Amazon or in a bookstore in Trinidad?
Right, I can tell you that. Economically, I am better off here. when I order the copies, I can sell it at a certain price. With Amazon, what happens is that Amazon, when you order from Amazon, Amazon sees about getting it printed and delivered to you. Amazon puts out their money. The profit from that, they will take their profit, a significant bit, and pass on some to the publisher, and then the publisher in turn will pass on a fraction of that to me. Let me give you an example of the Norwegians, what happened with the Norwegians. Amazon sold 30 copies, let's say, right? 30 copies. They passed on the profit to the publisher. The publisher passed it on to me. She said, Krishna, I have some money for you. I say, all right, some money, good.
A cut.
I have a cut. I got $300. I say, well, thank you. You know, what more can I say? for 30 books. In the meantime, when I sold 30 books here, okay, I was selling for $100 a copy, 30 books. TT. So I made $1,500 because it cost me $50 a copy. Good. That's the economics of it. But the good thing is, people away are getting the copies, and I am so grateful for that. I am glad because we do have a large diaspora, you know this, of Pleasantville people out there. There was one girl in London, she told me that Kelly Webb, you may know Kelly Webb, drama. She told me that she was getting her copy. I couldn't believe it in London. And then when she did get it, she posted a picture of it, an image of it, onto my Facebook page. I was so grateful for that. I thanked her for the post, and I also was glad that she got her copy.
As an experienced writer, what advice would you give to upcoming writers?
Yeah, okay, upcoming writers. If you notice the flow of these books, Tentacles and Tendrils. Tentacles and Tendrils, I got that published through a competition I entered at Anson Gonzalez. He advertised this poetry competition, and that book came second. It was the runner-up. I did not win. But Anson felt it was good enough to publish with the winning entry, and that's how come that was published. I continue to write, and not with the, well, I was a teacher, so I had a source of income, and even now I'm a pensioner, and I have my source of income. I have my pension and my NIS, but it's nice when you have additional income coming. But what I would advise is that you continue writing and keep the dream alive. If you know you have a talent for writing, like people made me aware of this. People made me feel that I had this way with words. They would tell me, that is good, yeah, you have a way with words. And after they read something, they say, Mrs. Samaroo or Krishna, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what you wrote. And so I continued writing. While I was teaching, I was writing. And after teaching, I continued to write. So I would say, keep the dream alive, write. You may not get the kind of publicity, you may not get the kind of profit that you might be dreaming of, but take time. Your belief in your writing is more important than anything else.
Writing aside, what has been the high point of Summer's life?
The high point of my life? Well, there are many things which I have to say I was grateful for, right? My first marriage to Radhika Samaroo, my 3 boys. There's a story behind those 3 boys because they could very well not have been here. were it not for my brother-in-law, I can say this, were it not for my brother-in-law who advised the surgeon, who was in a cutting mood at a time, that he leave a certain ovary alone, and he did that, and so my boy said, I am absolutely grateful for that. Then my writing, it was so nice to get this book published to Novarians, meeting this publisher. This publisher and I used to read poetry together in the 80s and going on to the 90s. More the 80s, I remember. Early 90s. She used to come with a guitar and play. That's Paula Obey Thomas. And I had this book, the Novarians in mind, and I mentioned it to Vishnu Gosain, another writer, who rates me up highly, right? Vishnu Gosain recommended this publisher. He said, why don't you go to Paula? I said, Paula the poet? He said, yeah, she has a publishing company, Bamboo Talk Press. So I went to her and she got it published. And I saw that as the launch, the official launch of my writing career. Because from the Novarians, after that you had the public orator, then you had Posted to Teach, then you had this one, Retreat, right? So you have Retreat, a volume of verse, you have the public orator, this is also poetry, you had the Novarians, the novel, and of course you have Posted to Teach. But I told you, Posted to Teach was not the book that was next in line. The book that was next in line was the book on Sixth Form Days, which is it's not a sequel, but it's the narrator of this is in that book. And I was working on that when Mr. Adams nudged me into writing this book. So I shelved that book for this. This should have been my 8th book. It's now my 6th book. Good? Yes. So those are two things that I cherish greatly, and there are other things that I may not want to go into.
So, any closing remarks?
Yes, closing remarks. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Clifton, for this opportunity, the exposure, the promotion of the book. I thank you so much. You yourself are continuing your post-teaching career. It's nice to see that. I always look forward to your videos. You did a video when I released the Novarians. You called me in school. That was so nice of you. When I told you about Posted to Teach, you instantly you said, well, we have to do an interview on this. So I thank you for that. I would like to put it out to people who are seeing the interview, right? If they put their hands on a copy, whether from Amazon or whether when it's available locally, and have a read of this work. Okay, stop it. Yeah. Continue. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Have a read of this. Have a read of this book. So, thank you so much, Mr. Clifton.
You're welcome anytime. Carlisle Ledger Woodboy.
Yes.
Blessed soul.
Yeah, true boy.
We were in Botswana together.